Hey, welcome back to the channel. Now, this morning I was out looking at a couple of potential property sites for a small property development, and I've come back in and I've run some numbers. So I will just quickly run through how I put together a property feasibility study in just a pretty short time, just to work out whether it's worth wasting more resources on a particular project. So let's go have a look at how I do it. Now, I've already got quite a number of models already built for this type of purpose, where I can just come through and stick in the numbers. Of course, models are one thing, but the actual numbers are another. So you need to be really precise with the numbers that you're putting in and try and make it as accurate as possible. That can involve going and talking to people, looking at historical pricing, look at local construction costs. There's a whole raft of things that you need to include to get the right price, or as close to what is the actual price that you can. Now, just looking at this example here, I've gone out and determined for a property site and the type of development that I have in mind that I would be able to sell each unit at around 1.495. So that's one of the starting inputs that you need. You need to have a rough idea of what properties of a similar style to what you're building, what they're going for in that area. Now I put in the local agent fees for selling the property. If we do this development and we want to sell it at the end, I've got in there 2.5. This is a very small project, so we'll only be building two units on it, on a corner block. Now the purchase price of the land, which also has a property on it as well, I've done this down in this instance. Whenever you get a property that has already a building on there and possibly a tenant in there, or the possibility that can be tenanted, it's not a bad idea at looking at actually being a landlord for a short period of time while the plans and permits and then the construction phase is getting ready. So where you're getting the architectural plans drawn up and all the rest of it, you can keep some money flowing through. Now, I haven't included any of those rental numbers in this instance, just to keep this really simple for comparison purposes. Now, the construction cost per unit is going to be around $422,000. And if I was to rent something like this in that area, I'll put in the figure of 1,350. I always like to put in something that I compare, whether the best option is to buy and sell a development, or whether it works out nicely to hold it and rent it. I've got in a contingency percentage of 5%. So we'll see how that comes into play later, but what that is saying is, out of the numbers that I'm putting together, I haven't quite firmed them up 100% yet, but we want to keep that contingency in there for things that we miss, or things that can actually go wrong during the construction phase, or delays or things of that nature. The interest rate I've got in there for this particular person, or at this particular project, at 6.5%. What you need to realize is you often don't get the same beneficial mortgage rates that you do if you're doing maybe buying a property to rent out, or a property to live in. Often your cost of finance is a little bit higher on these type of projects. The project time frame I've got in here, 12 months. So basically from the time of purchase, 12 months to get the thing built and sold off. So I would expect that in that time, for those to be able to sell it for a total price of around 2.9 million when complete. Then you've got to take off your sales costs, settlement costs, etc. So there's the expected total revenue of this. Then we just come down to the costs. So it's important to try and capture as many of the costs as you can. You want to really capture all the costs to see if it's a worthwhile project. So firstly, the major cost is the acquisition. So this could be the acquisition of the land or the land and building, if it's already got a building of it. Then you're going to have your legals, your property taxes, your stamp duties, that type of thing that are involved in the property transaction. So then you come up to a total cost of the purchase. Then your next biggest cost is really going to be your construction costs. So, this is heading up towards $1 million in construction costs. Got a contingency in there. If you're really unsure around this, you really increase that contingency percentage just to make sure it's worthwhile. You've got to remember, this is something that you can quickly punch in the numbers and see if it's worth investigating further. You might go through 5, 6 different properties that you can quickly do this and work out what the best option is. So you don't want to be spending hours and hours and hours in great deal of detail if the numbers in the first instance aren't stacking up. So this is what it tells you, that other numbers are going to stack up, and then you can basically go back and start fine-tuning it when you find something that looks like it's a decent opportunity. Remember, it's like a lot of investment things. When they talk about property, they talk about this 100, 30, 10, 1 rule, which is basically you have 100 deals pass by you. Of that, there might be 30 that you take a closer look at, and then there might be 10 that actually start to stack up, that you might even put a fair bit more research into. And of that, you'll probably come up with a number of 3 that you will actually put an offer in, and out of those 3, you might actually get one deal across the line. So by that, you need a really quick mechanism to come in and get the numbers punched in, and a quick yes or no as to whether you go further with it. I've got $5,000 of consulting fees, maybe a little bit light. Now there'll be marketing fees associated with selling the property. Because this is just a small project, the marketing fees shouldn't be too much. Got permits, that's either with the council or the city that need to be lodged. And then you got your design consulting fees, and you could probably add in upwards of, if you're going for some really high level architecturally designed, this could be upwards of $40,000-$50,000 for these actual architect plans. And then, because this project is fully financed, we need to make sure we're taking into account all the interest, and all the interest is capitalized. Legals, what we have to pay for the subdivision, and insurances. Now, there could be a whole other raft of costs in there, but these are the main costs. You also have things like which are probably bundled into this construction cost, but which is the getting your services turned on, your sewerage, water, electricity, gas, all those things, getting those connections to the building. So there's a whole raft of things that you want to keep in mind, but you can quickly punch these numbers. So in this instance, it's telling me that it's possible, and again, just at a first glance, that this project could return $224,000. So it might be a project, like if you had a similar project to this, you might want to take a closer look. The ROI has come in around 8. Depending on the risk involved in a project, you would probably want that number to be closer to 15% ideally. So that's basically how we do it at this level. And because I've done it over 12 months, I also like to quickly model in This helps with the actual allocation of interest, what the major cash flow outflows would look like over the 12 months. So this comes back to a tool that you can use later when you're actually managing the project when you're drawing down on a line of credit, or you're getting a construction loan that has various steps. So your first item in month one, you purchase the property, might already have to pay up for the permits, pay the insurances up front, and you're going to get that monthly interest charge. Now this interest charge is actually being capitalized into this project. So you flow through. So we go through a full 6 months until we can start construction. So it's a very short construction period, if everything, very aggressive construction period of 6 months. And we're breaking down that construction payments into, usually to the construction company, might be a first up payment of 10%. It could be actually, even back here, it could be a deposit of 10%. And then a couple of months later, the first installment at 10%. I've just done on basically how I've seen it historically been done, which is sort of, first month at 10%, then 20%, 20%, 20%, and then I think it's usually another 20% at lockup, and then a final inspection and sign over at 10. And the last 10 is usually broken up into maybe one amount of 5%, and then for the final lockup stage, and then a final payout of the final 5% when it's all complete. Sometimes that may not be done until a month or two later, where it's just all finalized. So that is the very, very, very basic overview of a property development feasibility study. Alright, hope it's given you something to think about if you're thinking about going ahead and doing some small property developments. Okay, thanks again and good luck.